If you're thinking about moving to the Oregon coast, whether it's the northern, central, or southern region, you're probably envisioning ocean views, peaceful walks on the beach, and overall just a slower pace of life. But there is a more important topic that doesn't always get talked about, but if you are serious about moving to the Oregon coast, you should probably know about it. Stay tuned to learn more. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Clem with the Oregon Relocation Team coming to you from the Oregon coast. And in this video, we're going to talk about a topic that doesn't get addressed all that often. And we're talking about the one natural disaster and all of the downstream effects, no pun intended, when it comes to living on the Oregon coast and what to expect. Now, if this is your first time to the channel, or you've been here and you haven't already and you want to get more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. So what we're going to talk about in this video is the fact that the Oregon coast sits right on the doorstep of the Cascadia subduction zone, one of the most powerful earthquake zones in the world. And when, not if, a major magnitude earthquake hits, some parts of the Oregon coast could sink as much as 6 or 7 feet. So this is really going to change the flood zones. It's really going to change the topography, and it's going to change to varying degrees all the developed areas up and down the Oregon coast. And when you combine a major magnitude earthquake from the Cascadia subduction zone with the projected sea level rise that's already projected to take place over the next 50 to 75 years, you're looking at a real shift in terms of what areas in what towns are going to be livable. Now, if you want to look into this a lot deeper, I'm not a geologist. I'm not an expert in emergency preparedness. There was a recent article that came out in Oregon Live, a statewide publication, talking about some of the effects of sea level rise that's projected to happen over the next 50, 75, 100 years, and how that coupled with a major earthquake could have a devastating impact potentially. So I will link to more information in the description of this video. So of course you can look into this more yourself. This is, as much as anything, a PSA for people who are considering relocating to the area. When we look at making a major investment, such as buying property, buying a home, of course, you want to take into account what the future might look like. Anywhere you live in the country, there's going to be some consideration for natural disasters, whether it's hurricanes or wildfires or tornadoes or earthquakes or drought potentially, any of the number of things that could hit a region. And obviously, some regions are more susceptible than certain natural disasters than others are. On the Oregon coast, of course, you're looking at earthquakes, flooding, tsunamis potentially stemming from earthquakes. And so it's definitely something that we have a responsibility as real estate professionals who are helping people relocate to the area to at least put this out front and make sure that this is something that people know about. And we've helped so many people relocate to Oregon and move to the Oregon coast. And as real estate professionals, we absolutely love to help with that process. So if you are considering a move to the area and you want to talk more about your budget, your home search, your timeline, what living in some of these different towns are going to be like, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link down below the description of the video. Schedule a Zoom call with us and we can talk more about it. Okay, so this is something that we've talked about at different levels in the past on this channel. It's something that we've actually got criticism on with certain comments on certain videos saying that we are being irresponsible by even talking about people moving to the area because of the threat of this type of natural disaster. So it's not something we address in every video. It's not something that is out front as a disclosure for everything that we're doing. Obviously, nobody knows fully what the impact would be, when it will happen, etc. But of course, this is something that could really sneak up on us at any time. So there was a article on Oregon Live recently saying new study shows how massive Cascadia subduction zone earthquake would completely remake Pacific coastline. So a little bit of a dramatic headline, at least to some degree. But of course, there is some truth to that, and that is why I wanted to talk about that in this video, because when you look at the coastline, when you look at the Oregon coast, there are Several towns, in fact, most towns are really right at about sea level. You have some development, in particular residential development, that is at some relative elevation, but a lot of areas are in flood zones, even if it's like 50 or 100-year flood zones. So definitely something to take note of. And basically, the point of this article was to illustrate how these flood zones will become much, much larger over the next 50, 75, 100 years with sea level rise. And then you'll basically have an equivalent impact within a matter of minutes with a major magnitude earthquake from the Cascadia subduction zone. All right, so I don't want to bore you too much just going up and down a map. But if we look at the coastline, we can see where the majority of the populations are. We can look at some of the larger towns and see where these high hazard areas are today. And the projections is that these could increase by 100, 200% as far as the span of the flood area, flood hazard zones themselves. So if we look at like Seaside, Gearhart here, for example. So as you can see, color coded, make it nice and easy. Basically red, very high, orange, high, yellow, moderate, and green, I guess, low flood hazard zone areas. When you're looking at Gearhart, I mean, you don't climb a ton of elevation here, right? So this is all going to be right along the beach, but you can see how close these towns are as far as, where the majority of people are, where the majority of people live. And all of these areas could potentially become, flood zones after a major event, like a major magnitude earthquake for the Cascadia subduction zone, or again, even over time. So it's definitely something to pay attention to. And I will link to this map in the description of the video, as well as the FEMA tool where you can plug in an address and see what type of risk you might have currently for flooding. You can see Cannon Beach here. Again, we don't have to go all the way up and down the map, but you get the idea. These towns on the Oregon coast are all really close to the ocean, right? So if we see areas that are sinking 6 or 7 feet, that makes an enormous impact. If we see sea level rise too over time, that makes an enormous impact. So it's really kind of a two-headed monster here in terms of what we might be looking at in the future. Now, this isn't a scare tactic. Obviously, I'm very highly incentivized to help people relocate to the area and help them with a real estate transaction. That's all we do. So this is more FYI at the very least. And more importantly, what are the things to consider when you are faced with the reality of living in such a dynamic landscape? So if you're buying a home at the Oregon coast, some of the things we're going to look at are, am I in a floodplain or a tsunami evacuation zone? What's the home's elevation? Really easy information to find. What's the infrastructure around me that could be affected by either a major acute event or rising sea level over time? Where are the hospitals? Where are the grocery stores? Where are the bridges? Can I get out of town if something were to happen? Again, especially a major catastrophic event like an earthquake. And then also, something we get asked about a ton is, can I get insurance coverage? And if you are in a flood zone, that's going to be added coverage. There are some areas on the Oregon coast where the only policy you can get is a FEMA policy, but that is generally not the case. And so, just like living in a floodplain anywhere else, you can get insurance for that, but it's an add-on to your homeowner's insurance. But there's also plenty of areas on the Oregon coast where you're not in a flood zone currently. Part of what we're talking about is, could you be 25 years from now? Could you be immediately if there were a catastrophic event? But bottom line, as of today, you're not going to have a ton of trouble getting an insurance policy, with some exceptions. Again, looking at current flood areas and areas that are right on the ocean at no elevation. Okay, so what does this actually look like? What's the likelihood of something happening? Obviously, again, there's no way for me to know, especially because this is not my field of expertise whatsoever. And the people who study this stuff, look at this stuff every day, can only look at the facts based on history and what's known now in terms of projecting out or predicting what could happen in the future. But what they're looking at in this article that came out was the 1% flood zone or floodplain, which is not a term that I am familiar with. It might be something that insurance companies use. It sounds like if you are in a 1% flood zone, that you would then be required to have flood insurance. So, what I'm reading is that in 75 years, if there was the projected sea level rise, that took place over that time and a major earthquake that took place over that time, it would actually triple that 1% flood zone. So, without an earthquake, 75 years from now, the projection is that the flood zone would be expanded by about 35 square miles. If there were an earthquake at any point, that could expand the flood zone anywhere from 35 square miles to 115 square miles. So we're talking about what is a relatively contained floodplain today expanding by 100, 200% potentially by the year 2100. 2100? Is that how we would say it? Yeah, I guess so. Hard to even think that far in the future. So part of this article is highlighting sea level rise and what will happen, in particular, in kind of the long term, looking out 75 years from now. But if there was an acute sea level rise caused from an earthquake, that could expand again tomorrow, that floodplain by anywhere from 35 to 115 square miles. So obviously, if something was taking place looking at sea level rise over 75 years, there are things that can be done to mitigate that and to guard against some of the catastrophic effects that would happen if it took place in an instant. And so, if this earthquake were to happen at any point in our lifetimes, we're talking about major stretches, long stretches of Highway 101, the main highway up and down the Oregon coast being submerged. We're talking about, water treatment plants. We're talking about effects to the power grid, electrical substations, things like that, that could be affected by not just the shaking, but again, the rapid sea level rise that would then take place. So there's a lot of critical infrastructure that could be affected immediately. Why if you're looking at moving to the Oregon coast and you're really evaluating, the square mile around you, the 5, 10 miles around you, in particular, are you able to get east to get to, say, that I-5 corridor to get into a larger town to maybe seek refuge for a little bit or to get critical supplies, whatever it may be? I think that's something that at least might not hurt to consider. Now, again, is this going to happen in our lifetime? Well, the shortest span between a major earthquake and the Cascadia subduction zone was 150 years. The longest span was 1,050 years, and averages about every 500 to 600 years. And we've gone 325 years since the last major earthquake. The last major earthquake was in the year 1700. So if we compare that to the shortest span being 150 years in between major earthquakes, we're doubled that now. If we look in terms of averages every 5 to 600 years, well, the chances of something happening in our lifetime, when you look at it from that perspective, seem to be quite reduced. Look, no place is going to be risk-free when you look at the potential for natural disasters. The Oregon coast just has one very specific one. If you look at flooding over the long term and sea level rise, maybe we're up against something that, is happening more slowly. But if we're talking about acute catastrophic events, again, it's not something that we're dealing with on an annual basis like other parts of the country, but it is something that could have a dramatic impact, catastrophic impact if it were to happen. And if you look at the history, it will happen again at some point. But if you plan well And if you understand what you're getting into, of course, the Oregon coast is still one of the most beautiful and breathtaking places in the world. So if you're dreaming about living near the ocean in Oregon, don't give up on it. Just be informed. And if you are looking for homes in any Oregon coast town, and if you want to talk more about what it's like living on the Oregon coast, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, click the link down below in the description of the video, schedule a Zoom call with us. We can dig into it some more. If this video was helpful, make sure to hit the like button. That helps us out a lot. If you want to get more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. As always, we really appreciate you watching. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.